It's a common practice for new writers to be confused about the difference between writing about sex, romance, and love. They tend to group them all into the same category. Big mistake. They are all very much independent of each other. Time for another of my little tales.
Why did you let me kill me?
Three characters walk into a bar. One named Sex, one named Romance, and the other named Love. A beautiful woman is seated at the bar and gets their attention. She has been waiting for the right one to walk into the bar and take her home. Earlier, her mother had warned her before she left home for the bar that she will end up a spinster if she couldn't decide on a man that could make her happy and finally move out of her house. She is then told by her mother not to come back home alone. The character named Sex assures her that he is quite skilled in every aspect of sexual pleasure, and if she chooses him, she will have an endless amount of climax filled nights. The character named Romance promises he will be devoted to filling her life with fresh roses each morning and hand in hand moonlight strolls. The character named Love vows to always be there, never leaving her side and adoring her more and more each day they are together. The woman thinks long and hard about what each character is offering her and finally speaks. She turns to the character named Sex and says, "Although I crave the very thing you are offering, you cannot sustain me." She then turns to the character named Romance and says, "What you offer is a dream I have dreamt of, but I bore easily, and if all I have to look forward to is more of the same, that would never sustain me." She then turns to the character named Love and says, "What you are devoting is the very thing any woman might seek, but without a reason to love you in return, this could never sustain me." Today, I'll talk about the difference between sex, romance, and love in regard to your story. And at the end, I'll tell you what the woman at the bar decided. Sex, romance, and love are found in almost every kind of story, and you will endeavor to include them in yours. But you first need to understand the difference between them. I say this because people tend to confuse them. Sex, for example. Romance isn't sex, and sex isn't romance. Sex can be romantic and romance can be sexy, but they are two individual concepts. Many writers make the mistake of believing they are the same thing and begin writing a novel with a great deal of sex in it. They believe they've written the best selling romance novel. No, they've written a porno. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't any sex in romance. On the contrary, there's usually a great deal of it. What I'm saying is there doesn't have to be sex for there to be romance. You can have a great romantic love affair without any sex present. Remember the movie The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner? There were definitely romantic overtures between them, but sex never played a part in their relationship. People tend to think that because sex has passion or intimacy, it must have romance. Wrong. First of all, passion and intimacy are byproducts of sex, romance, and love. They are feelings generated as a result of the level of familiarity the two involved are experiencing. For example, when two people engage in sex, let's say money changes hands and they go at it. One is in it for the rising action that will eventually lead to the desired climax. The other for the dollar bills. Here, there is no passion or intimacy. Maybe a little lust on the one riding the rising action, but that's all. Another example: two co workers married to other people have one thing in common: their sexual enjoyment of one another. They can't keep their hands off of each other. Every chance they get, they're embracing in the file room, pulling off each other's clothing and engaging in infatuated sex. Their sex is passionate, but not intimate. You might be wondering, how more intimate can they get? Well, although they've probably explored every inch of each other's body, they've still not been intimate. To understand this, you first need to know what intimacy is. Now, I know this is sounding a little like sex ed class, but it's important to know their differences if you're going to write about them. People get confused with the term intimate because it has become the polite way of saying sex. Instead of saying we had sex last night, people tend to be polite and say we were intimate last night. But remember, intimacy is a byproduct of sex just as much as sex is a byproduct of intimacy and doesn't always play an active role. Intimacy stems from a person's feelings, and those feelings are of the closeness and bondness people engaging in something of a familiar nature are experiencing. It could be between a mother and her child, even a father and his child, without any hint of anything sexual. And it could be between two people who are likely to allow that intimacy to evolve into something sexual. Let's use the example of two high school students sitting on the school bleachers after the big game. They've only ever gotten as far as holding hands up until that day. They look fondly into each other's eyes, and for each of them, nothing else in the world exists. He runs his fingers through her hair. She squeezes his other hand tightly. Slowly, they lean forward until their lips make contact. Their hearts are beating rapidly, and they are in a place they've never before experienced. There is now a strong bond between them. They stay that way for the next half hour, kissing, smiling, and looking fondly into each other's eyes. They finally stop when the school caretaker shouts out for them to stop doing what they're doing and get home. But he's not talking about them. He was referring to the two other students who were under the bleachers having quick sex to celebrate their team winning the big game. What the two under the bleachers were doing was straight up sex. Maybe a little passion and lust involved, but no intimacy present. The two on top of the bleachers were not engaging in sex, but it was of a sexual nature. They were, by all definitions, intimate, not because it might lead to sex, but because of what they felt for each other and the way they acted upon those feelings. Was there passion involved? Probably. But the thing to realize in understanding intimacy: to the couple under the bleachers, smiling fondly and kissing might be a regular occurrence and hold no intimate value for them. But to another couple, like the couple on top of the bleachers, the feelings that their actions produced allowed them the opportunity to be intimate. Because what the couple under the bleachers engaged in were physical feelings. Those feelings were fleeting, ending the moment that they heard the caretaker and broke contact. But the couple on top of the bleachers, although they broke contact at the same moment as the other couple, the outcome was different. Because their intimacy wasn't just physical feelings, but also internal feelings that took time to develop. Those feelings were able to continue to thrive. When we talk about love, although love as a concept is highly subjective, when you include love in your story, it is quite simple. Love is affection. It's how that affection is perceived that can get complicated. In literary works, like most other places where love is found, it's more of a theme than a physical entity. Sex is an in your face, no doubt about it act. You can engage in it or sit there and watch it unfold. Love, like intimacy, is more of a state of being. And again, highly subjective. Where holding hands and engaging in prolonged kissing is a prelude to lovemaking for some, for others, it might be a waste of valuable time because it holds no value to them. When writing about love, it will involve, for example, family, which is not to be mistaken with writing about being in love. That kind of love is usually reserved for husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend. If you write about the love between a mother and her child, remember this love is intimate, a feeling. The physical aspect of it, the holding, the caressing, the kissing on the forehead, stems from that intimacy. Being in love, on the other hand, is between a couple who have intimacy with the expectation of taking the physical aspect of it to a sexual nature. The kissing on the mouth, the touching of those private parts, the enjoyment of a sexual nature. Romance, on the other hand, focuses on the development and relationship between two or more people. It is the outward expressions of the affections of love. In other words, romance could be classified as the pursuit of love. And along the way, it is common for couples to encounter lust, passion, and of course, sex. But when writing a story that contains sex, romance, and love, as well as any of their subgenres, it is important not to confuse one with the other. When the driving force of your story is about two people engaging in sex, it's a porno. Make that story about how those two people interact, their happiness, their arguments, their longing for one another, their jealousy, and their strong desire to be together, regardless of how much sex they engage in. You have a love story. Make that love story about the adventure of their pursuit of each other, his chivalrous fighting for her honor, coming together in a happy ending, regardless of their jealousy or arguments or engaging in more sex than a porno star. You have a romance story. The key to differentiating amongst them is to realize and stay true to your core plot. Is the goal of your main character just to engage in sex? Or are you introducing sex as part of their goal in discovering whether or not they feel true love for each other? Whatever you decide to base your story on, be it eroticism or coming of age true love, make sure it's defined so your reader doesn't have to try to figure it out for themselves, but instead can relax and enjoy the story you've created. And now I'll tell you the ending to the story I call All or Nothing. As far as the woman in the bar saw it, she couldn't choose any one of those characters because, as delightful as each of them would be individually, they could never sustain her needs. And since her mother warned her not to return home alone, she did the only thing she could have done that would ensure that she would have everything she desired. So, she took all three home with her. Thanks for watching. And if you found anything that I said beneficial to you in any way, hit that subscribe button because you never know. My next video might just be helpful too.